range of flexibilities, and it's also a much cheaper environment to work in. So Jokaydiagrid started off with just one region over on Reaction Grid way back in the early days of OpenSim. And we've slowly but surely grown to a grid of about 80 regions now, and we have a whole range of different groups who work here. Rockcliffe University is here, which is one of the big guns in virtual worlds, and I think is now the biggest community left in Second Life. But they also have a 12-region estate over here on Jokaydiagrid, through to colleges in Australia. So we've got a number of vocational colleges who work here with their students, through to high schools and primary schools. So we've got some great schools here who work with their kids here, learning to build and script and all sorts of interesting things. We've got a group here who does things around HIV and AIDS education. We've got another group that from Montana and do stuff around 3D spatial learning and building with their kids. So a real range of different projects and organisations work here, and it's a fantastic role that I have as kind of the owner and grid manager and facilitator on a lot of those projects.
Great.
And
go ahead.
Hopefully you've all had a chance to have a bit of an explore. If you haven't, do go to Scooter Sim and check out the region board over there and visit some of your neighbours.
Well, that's a great segue into this week's activities, which are primarily about exploring. And I just actually set up the assignment telling people to either use their map and click on any region, or go to Scooter and click on the teleport board. So that's exactly what we'll be doing this week. The students have only been here for 2 weeks, and they've pretty much gotten their avatars on and made it here, and have started doing some basic assignments, learned how to take photos, and have learned how to, well, some have learned how to res boxes and sit, obviously, and that sort of thing. Do you have any suggestions of, beyond exploring, what are some good ways to develop an understanding of what it means to do education in virtual worlds?
I think obviously exploring is definitely a great first step, just to see what other people are doing. I think the other thing to think about is having a bit of a look on YouTube at some of the machinima that people make. There are some amazing machinists out there, both in Second Life and OpenSim. From an educational perspective, having a look at the Virtual World's Best Practice Conference videos is a great idea. If you search for VWBPE on YouTube, you'll find some of those. And I think also it's about learning to, spending time together. I think that one of the key experiences for me when I first started in virtual worlds way back in the early days was that sense of being there together and doing things together. And as you spend more time in Jokaydiagrid, you'll probably meet Azura Supli, who's my sidekick and collaborator in a lot of virtual worlds projects that we work on. Azura and I actually met in Second Life. So she moved in, or she's a she in virtual worlds and a he in real life, but she moved into a piece of land next to me in the first area that I owned on the mainland in Second Life, and we've become fast friends. I would identify him as my bestest buddy. And over the years, we've learnt to build together and script together and work with a whole range of different groups together. And I think that sense of being able to collaborate together from opposite sides of the world — Azura is actually based in Pennsylvania in the States — is really meaningful. And I think that really, for me, was where I could see the power of virtual worlds, that ability to be together and do things together and feel that sense of collaboration, even though we're miles apart. So I think just working together as a group and figuring out how to make a little house or build a little activity that you might use with your students in the future, those are the sorts of things that can really help you to get a sense of what it's like to be avatarized.
Please feel free to type a question into the chat, and Danius will see you in a moment when you come back. Just out of curiosity, if you feel like you've had an experience so far, this is to the group, where you have felt your avatar. I don't know if the example that Coyote gave earlier, that he felt like he was being inappropriate if his avatar bumped into somebody else. But if you've felt like you've been embodied in your avatar, you've somehow felt that what was happening to your avatar was happening to you, could you just type yes in the chat now? And while people are doing that, Fahey has asked, how much time do our students spend in virtual spaces, Jokay? And Fahey, maybe you can expand on this if we get it wrong, but I'm thinking that you're asking, do kids spend a lot of time here? And by the way, Jokay, all of these people are teachers or somehow involved in education.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Faye. I think it depends on the project that you're working on and the environment that you're working on. What we see here in Jokaydiagrid is that kids will come here to spend time learning. They don't necessarily socialise a lot here because most of them are really into games. But when they're, deeply embedded in a project, they tend to move in and live here. As a good example, we've got a group of students who are vocational education students in business studies at the moment. And they're working on a trade fair project. So the idea is that they actually build trade fair displays that will be presented at a big event where they'll have lots of visitors. And it's all about developing communication skills, both in terms of the products and the promotional materials that they develop, and also the way that they communicate with their visitors. And their project started about 6 weeks ago, and they're coming up on their big virtual trade show in about it's in about 2 weeks now, I think. So they're here during class time for 5 or 6 hours a week, but they're also spending a lot of evenings here, so they're very immersed in what they're doing and focused on their projects. To give you an idea of how kids work in virtual spaces, though, over in my Minecraft project, where we're running a community for kids ages 4 to 16, I see kids basically live there. We have kids who probably spend, when they're allowed to, 90% of their leisure time in world playing with other kids. So it's about providing them with an environment that really encourages them to have agency and to feel that they're really encouraged to be creative. And that's, most definitely what we see in that Minecraft community, that kids are, really enabled to explore and build and create content and work together. And it's a lovely thing to see kids with that freedom to learn and explore together. So it's an interesting process. The Minecraft community is obviously in Minecraft. We do have a sim here that the Massively kids, it's called Massively at Jokaydia or Massively Minecraft. And the Massively kids tend to grow into open sims. So some of our more advanced kids who have gotten very into Redstone and therefore are wanting to extend their skills into scripting are starting to leak over to Jokaydiagrid, and they spend a little bit of time here playing around with very geeky, techie things. And, we have some 12 and 13-year-old kids who are scripting like pros. So, when given the freedom and support to develop those skills, they're amazing in terms of what they can do.
So, Jokay, I don't know if you see the question from Gabe.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Gabe. We have a lot of kids in the Minecraft community in particular who are homeschooled, and so they're really desperate to connect to other kids and to have that social time. And what we see with those kids is massive development in terms of their social and their communication and collaboration skills. And I've got many parents who email me to tell me, the amazing things they're seeing for their kids in terms of their development. For example, I've got a kid who's he's 13 now, and he's actually leveled up in our community to be a junior moderator. So he has some responsibilities to help other kids, and she said to me, the day he became a junior moderator, it was like he was walking 2 inches taller with his chest out. So the pride and the development of skills that we see for those kids in terms of how they work with others and how they negotiate and resolve conflict and all of those really important communication skills is really huge. We also see some really amazing results for kids on the Asperger's autism spectrum, and many of the kids in our Minecraft community who are on that spectrum are our leaders. And when I hear stories about what happens to them at school, I think, wow, I deal with a completely different kid, because these spaces provide them with, safety and space to process and an ability to kind of level up and figure out how to be part of a community in a very safe, non-threatening way.
I want to have one more question, and I'm going to have it be Becky's, who's asking what types of classes come into Jokaydia, and she's trying to get at what kinds of subjects might people work on here.
Yeah, we have a whole range of different projects. So at the vocational adult end, we see lots of business studies type subjects where people are wanting their students to develop communication skills. History is a fantastic subject to explore in these types of environments where you can get kids building historical, places and developing characters and things like that. We obviously also see lots of arts and media, so getting kids to build machinima and learn how to use video editing tools and those sorts of things, or build really creative structures. Maths is another great one. You can get kids to build all sorts of things in terms of spatial understanding and geometry and those sorts of things. I've seen some great science projects where they've had kids building cells and molecules and models of scientific concepts and that sort of thing. So the options are really only limited by yours and your students' imagination. But yeah, it's a lot of what we see here is around communication and creation. And yeah, simulations is a really good example. We have a fantastic project from a vocational college in Australia out in Bathurst, so out in Western New South Wales, which is a fairly isolated location in terms of their students. They have lots of students that come into satellite colleges where there might be only 2 or 3 students in the group, and they actually do a tourism and hospitality subject in Jokaydiagrid, where they work on things like occupational health and safety in kitchens, and communication skills in terms of working in tourism venues, and all sorts of things related to tourism and hospitality. So it's really a broad spectrum of the types of projects that you can kind of make happen for students.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Jokay. We are now going to go to, and I'm not speaking very clearly, but just by way of letting everybody know what comes next, we have Technotool Tim here, who is going to take us to his island, which is a high school vocational program. He'll explain this better than I am, but here in Vermont, that has an island in Jokaydiagrid, and Techno is waving his arm around. So please keep typing your questions for Jokay, and I'll send them to her by email. And is that okay with you, Jokay?
Yeah, that's fine. You can always grab me via email or the support form on the website. There's also a Facebook group, and you can get me on Twitter at Jokay, so feel free to get in touch. Oh, it's a pleasure, Gabe. I'm a night owl. I'm always up in the middle of the night. It's all part of working in virtual worlds.